So we were talking about the coffee, and Steve and I both love our coffee, but we've never had coffee like this before.
No, not at all. This is big news. I want to welcome our special guests.
John M. Darch and John A. Darch, who are the president and CEO, or CFO, pardon me, of the Doi Chaang Coffee Company. Of course, you would have seen this on the News Hour last night because Linda Aylesworth and Sergio Magro recently traveled to northern Thailand to profile the beans, the Doi Chaang beans.
Yep.
And now you guys have brought them in. These are civet coffees.
Civet coffee.
Yeah. Let's start the story from the beginning for those folks who may not have seen the story last night. How did this all happen?
Well, this happened about 3.5 years ago when a friend of mine in Thailand asked me if I could help the Hill Tribe people and to bring their coffee to Thailand. These people are the Aka Hill Tribe people, and for many years they've lived in destitution. So I agreed that I would help, and that's where we are now.
They weren't able to sell their coffee.
They were able to sell their coffee in Thailand, but the big market for them, of course, is North America and Europe, and they didn't have the connections or the expertise or the finance to do it.
Now tell us about these beans and what makes them so special.
You mean the civet beans?
Yeah.
The civet beans. The civet beans are beans that have been eaten by a civet, which is really like a mongoose.
Right.
And there are two types. They eat the beans and it passes through the animal,
right,
known as the cat poo coffee.
Yeah.
And certain of the civets actually just chew the bean, swallow, and then regurgitate it.
Okay.
So you actually have two types.
That's the spit.
Yeah, and you must have been thinking, what?
Yeah, really.
Had you heard of this before?
I hadn't personally about the civet coffee, but he had.
Yeah, I'd heard about it before. In Indonesia and the Philippines, civet became quite popular. And one of the problems is when it becomes popular, farmers start to cage the animals. And caging the animals, force feeding the animals, you have a problem with, obviously, it traumatizes the animals.
Sure, yeah.
And the animals
cruel,
do not get to choose.
And they don't feed them the best berries either.
Right.
In the wild, they go out, they pick the ripest.
Now, you brought up an interesting point, and a lot of these the way they found out about about the way these coffee beans taste was because they actually needed them almost for survival at one point.
At one time, the people who used to drink the civet coffee were essentially the slaves who used to work on the plantations.
Right.
And because they weren't able to have the coffee themselves, they would go and pick up the beans from the forest.
That's right.
And they would process them and drink them. And somewhere along the line, somebody decided they would try them and found out that actually the coffee does taste quite good.
Delicacy.
John, what do you think of it?
Well, it has a lingering nutty flavor, as I would say.
That's one way of describing it.
That's a great coffee. It's low in acidity, and I enjoy it, yeah.
It is more expensive than your average.
It's $55 Canadian for that tin right there that you see.
But you can taste the difference.
I can, yeah.
Okay.
So tell us about when you try to bring a coffee into a place like Vancouver. Now we're obviously, we're more aware, I think, of coffees like this and the better treatment of workers and things like that, and those ethical coffees, as they say. How do you start a coffee line in Vancouver? Like, where do you go to first, and has it been successful?
Well, it's been successful, but where do you go to first? It's really just walking around the stores, telling them the story, and we started with the specialty stores like Urban Fare, Mine Hearts, etc. It really depends on the quality. At the end, no matter what the story, it's the quality.
Yeah.
So you've got the quality.
Yes.
You've got the civet coffee. But there has been, I think, a growth in popularity of fair trade coffee. So,
Yes.
yeah, why is it so important to have fair trade?
Well, the fair trade coffee is to ensure that the farm workers have essentially a minimum wage. And what we endeavor to do was to go beyond fair trade, which is a registered trademark. And going beyond fair trade, what that means is that we pay almost twice the fair trade price for the green beans, where we give the farmers that cash up front. We bring the green beans to Canada, where we roast them, and we have given the farmers half of the Canadian company, which we fund.
Wow.
So that's way beyond fair trade.
Oh, good for you. Well, it's a really neat story. It's tremendous, and thank you. Appreciate you coming in this morning and talking to us about it.
Thanks for having us.
If folks want more information and to read more about it, your website, the best place to go?
DoiChaangCoffee.com.
And of course, we'll have more stories on Doi Chaang and the coffee growers in northern Thailand with Linda Aylesworth and Sergio Magro throughout the rest of the week on the News Hour. Thanks very much.
Thank you very
Nice
much.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Now.
All right, Wesley. Yeah. All right, you bite. Hey, Wes, what's going on?